So I came across this article a while ago, and I thought it was interesting. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to see if it has any good points, and I'm going to point out to you what I think is incorrect with my own knowledge of psychology. So how to keep fake news out of your head. The defense of your mind against digital lies begins with you. Now, before we get into this, just a reminder, you can find my Patreon and Subscribe Star links down below in the description, and you can join for as low as $1. You can choose whatever tier you wish. Doing so will get you access to Fight Club, a private Discord server. There's also a PayPal, and be sure to check out my social media. Be sure to follow me on BitChute. So we are floundering in the fake news era. This is a deep, dark ocean, and too many of us don't know how to swim. Remember when the internet was going to educate us and elevate our overall intelligence as a species? I mean, it still can. The 90s were so sweet and naive, weren't they? Well, you know what, friend? It's not my fault you don't read. I read all the time. Reading is how you learn. You know, there's these magical things called books. Pretty good stuff. All that good stuff may happen, but at present, digital fake news is deceiving countless minds. Millions of websites have been weaponized with content designed to attack our cognitive vulnerabilities. I like how he's saying this like it's a new thing. Almost everything we have in the modern world attacks your mind via psychic attack, okay? Food packaging is full of it. When you go to the store, you're literally surrounded by psychic attacks. It's called marketing. Every day, YouTube videos pump nonsense into the minds of millions. Yeah, only trust the media, boy. Every day, billions of emails fly around the world, delivering irresistible links to madness. Only boomers open email links. All of this is possible because most people have not bothered to learn the basics of human thought, biases, shortcuts, and perception errors that lead us to so easily believe nonsense and lies. I disagree with government calls and corporations to clean up the mess that is online fake news. First, there is a conflict of interest. These are often the sources of dishonest content. Second, freedom of speech is an invaluable concept that should not be weakened. Third, it is a defeatist victim mentality to expect someone else to protect your brain. Police your own thoughts. Don't be such an easy mark. Good thinking is not as difficult as you may imagine. In my book, Think Before You Like, I detail several simple defenses that everyone can utilize when consuming online information. Here's a condensed list. Okay, now let's go through this, what I'm sure is a boomer tier analysis. Be skeptical of everything. Never accept any claim, story, or news article as 100% true. Leave the door slightly ajar for intellectual escape. Take the stance of a good scientist, and remember that all knowledge is personal. Be humble. You don't know everything about everything, and cling to a bit of uncertainty in all things so that you never tie yourself too tightly to a concept that might turn out to be a mistake or lie. Now, I half agree with this. While it is very important to keep an open mind, I would advise people keep an open mind, not be skeptical. There's a reason for this, and this is something I noticed about skepticism a long time ago. The problem with skepticism is it closes people's minds to possibilities. These days, the skeptics are seen as absolute cringe. Well, I didn't like skeptics before it was cool. Here's what I noticed. If you're skeptical, you refuse to believe anything that's not documented. However, some things that are documented are incorrect. That were proven incorrect at some point because science has advanced. But here's the thing. If you only rely on what's already established as truth, then how can you make new discoveries or new conclusions? So that's my advice. Keep an open mind. Do not be skeptical. You can be doubtful, but skepticism is not healthy, in my opinion. Doubt is a good thing. Skepticism is not cynicism. I disagree. Thinking critically does not mean you are closed-minded or negative. Doing so is safe and wise. We should approach all news we encounter in this way, regardless of the source. Even the BBC and the New York Times makes mistakes. The BBC and the New York Times are some of the worst media sources who constantly lie. They're leftist rags. Even the BBC makes mistakes. Oh my god. Even the best journalists are human. Don't you mean subhuman? And that means they are not perfect every time. Don't rise to a constant state of paranoia, but do maintain a high level of awareness and concern about what you're taking in. Now, of that, I absolutely agree. It's obvious. It's been increasingly obvious to me lately that not all of my viewers are very resistant to psychic infiltration. You gotta learn to protect yourself from the gestalt, my friends. Consider the source. While we cannot trust any source completely and without reservation, The reputation of the source is a key step in assessing a news article. This is absolutely the worst piece of advice here. Absolutely not. Reputation is the worst source of determining whether something is true. We know this now with the mainstream media who constantly lie. Wasn't it not so long ago that some journalist won an award for best journalist ever, but it turns out all his stories were fake? And this guy was like 5 years, 10 years in the industry? They only found out because he felt guilty and he admitted it. One of the first things I do when I encounter a news article, post, or anything online is to look at the source. I rarely, if ever, read the entire text of a news story without first noting the source. Wow, okay. So if an independent journalist has a story, you're not going to read it. You're not going to read it even if they are the only ones with the story and it's true. And they have evidence. See, that's why this is terrible boomer tier advice.
You can trust it because it's CNN. Ho.
When many people land on a web page, however, they begin reading the content. Even if they are thoughtful enough to be concerned with errors, bias, and dishonesty, they make the key mistake of assuming that any problems present will become apparent while reading. This is not necessarily so. Before I waste my time and risk letting lies or nonsense creep into my mind, I ask myself the following questions. Who is behind this website? Who could be behind this? Who wrote the material? What is their track record, and do they have any obvious agendas or biases? And I believe it's biases, but I'm not European. I speak American. Who took this photo and wrote the caption under it? Who's paying the bills here? If I don't know the answer to at least some of these questions, or if there's a blah blah blah, okay, so. Specifically related to this, I have observed people conduct internet searches when trying to find an answer or research a topic, and it is shocking how few check the source before plunging into the information. This is a critical error that leads people off course. There are times that an article should be dismissed before reading, simply due to its source. Oh wow. See, that's what I'm talking about. And this is how I know this is bullshit. Okay, for example, if a middle school project is researching basic facts about the holo, you know, that horrible thing where a lot of people died in World War II, even though it's one of the smallest amounts of people that have died under genocides. Hello? Have you heard of communism? Have you heard of Mao or Stalin? They put the holo to shame. The last thing she needs is to land on some WW2 site and waste her time reading an article that claims it never happened. Look, here's two little fun facts about the holo. 1. The reason there was a lot of starvation was because, guess what? America and the other good guys blew up the supply lines, so they had no food for them. Another thing I'm going to say right now is I believe that the death toll was grossly exaggerated. Even if it's just 1 million less, 2 million less, I find it hard to believe that it was as many as they say. Sure, it happened, but that doesn't mean I gotta believe everything you tell me. Not to mention, you know Anne Frank? Like one of the most famous people? Did you know that 1, her father edited her diary, and 2, like half of the diary wasn't written by her, it was later added. The dude sold it, made so much money, and it's highly edited and basically full of crap that was made up. But you don't hear that, do ya? Google is not God. Tell that to Google. I know, Google is great. How did we ever live without it? But it's still just a search engine. It feeds you results based on the query and perhaps your online identity, and perhaps, he says, as determined by algorithms working behind your back. Google is not your personal librarian. It's not the arbiter of truth, a champion of science, reason, or anything like that. It's a search engine. Your job is to decide what's real or fake. Slow down. When reading the news, it's wise to withhold fully accepting a claim or digging in on a position until you know more, preferably from multiple sources. Did you just read that Kanye West kicked a puppy? Wait and gather more intel before deleting all songs on your playlist. So this is a good example. Don't go too fast. You can always check the sources to see if there even are any sources and cross-reference. See, this isn't possible in every case, especially when a lot of the media is lying. Now, this is probably the most sheep-like one here. Where is everybody else? If no one else is reporting on a particular story, ask yourself why. If you encounter a lone report that describes the opening of a new habitat featuring a live Bigfoot specimen at the San Diego Zoo, or the invasion of South Korea by North Korean killer robots, chances are good that it's fake news. The absence of similar reports by multiple news organizations is a gigantic red flag. Wrong! Now, this is absolutely not true. A lot of news sources and independent organizations and like journalists have scoops They have exclusives. That is bad news. Again, it's the sheep-like mentality.
Well, if I don't see the mainstream media talking about it, it must not be true.
YouTube and Google have the same problem. They demote independent people and they promote authoritative sources. Mainstream bullcrap, including joke news organizations like CNN. Understand the difference between opinion and news. Many people don't recognize the fundamental difference between opinion or commentary and news. Well, these days, they're all blending together, aren't they? Straight news is about the hard facts. Tell that to the news. Of an event and may include direct quotes, yada yada. So check the URL carefully. Many fake sites seek to fool people with web addresses that are similar to legitimate news sites. So this is good advice. One example is they'll add a .co to the end of .com, so like abcnews.com.co. This is really good. It can help save you from hackers, possibly even 4chan. If you see any suspicious links, do not click. Don't litter. Another significant problem is the habit many seem to have of sharing news links after doing more than reading the headline. How can one intelligently assess an article without reading it first? About 6 in 10 people are guilty of this, according to a recent study. I share stuff on the twatters sometimes. Usually read the comments, but it's usually stuff I already know is true. Like,
Europe experienced another bombing today. It's just part and parcel of living in the big city.
Like, I already know that's true. In 2016, a satirical site published an article with a catchy headline but gibberish for text. Nearly 46,000 people shared it. Oh, my friends, that's just the double-digit IQs kicking in. Reduce the flow. Part of the reason fake news has exploded on social media is that it's so easy for one to become fatigued, or at least distracted, and cognitively compromised by the never-ending avalanche of information. Well, that much is true. I try to make what I do entertaining, so at least people can enjoy listening to what's going on.
Remember who you are.
We humans don't do well at automatically identifying irrational beliefs. You don't need to tell me that. We live in clown world. And fraudulent claims for what they are. Our brains for all the glorious powers, are suckers for a good story, an exciting image, a convenient lie, or just plain old gossip.
Final thoughts on the war for your thoughts.
Strive to make critical thinking your automatic reaction to online encounters with news and other information. This won't make you invulnerable and incapable of making missteps, of course. Do not forget for 1 second that you are under constant threat of intellectual assault from countless throngs of deluded believers pushing endless streams of baloney and madness. There are also countless profit-motivated, agenda-driven, and just plain dishonest companies and people. Now, while I absolutely agree that you guys need to defend your minds, let's not fall to paranoia here. Being paranoid can be just as bad. I find some reason for hope and optimism amid the current explosion of fake news we are experiencing. Yeah, I wonder if you mean the mainstream fake news media or all of the truth tellers. There is a chance that people will finally be forced, after being suckered one too many times, to recognize and admit the obvious. Hey, that's my job. We must think before we believe. Maybe financial cost, political exploitation, or just plain humiliation will motivate us to finally become our own editors and stop trusting every story that comes along. Then that would be progress. Now, I absolutely love that the top comment here says, "Remember gang, left-leaning. Remember gang, left-leaning fake news has been around since the advent of media. God, Emperor Trump merely exposes what was already there." So here's another good comment, and this is where we're gonna finish up. We are not lemmings. It is exhausting to read the opinionated tripe of the mainstream. The mainstream tries to pass off as news. It is so hard to know the facts. First of all, the medium decides what is going to report and what it is going to leave out. Lies by omission. Then what ends up on the other than editorial pages is in reality a few facts clothed and inextricably woven into the reporter's stinky opinion. You know what they say about opinions. They are like a-holes. Everyone has one and they all stink. Okay, so I begin by filtering out all the old, tired criticisms and catchwords. I call these the olds. Then I filler out the value Latin words, liar, criminal, lawless, above the law, and the good old standard full-back racist. You get my drift. When I cut out all the nonsense, the few words that are left are probably what the news is. Now, I have a different technique. I call it unreading the news. It's very simple. If the media says that Trump started a fire, Trump did not stop a fire, and the media started the fire. So whatever they say, I'm more likely to assume the opposite is true. I double check by going through the same process with an article by the opposing side. If what is left is common to both sides, that is probably what the news actually is. Now that's very good advice. Check opposing sides of the argument, cross-reference. The common facts are usually at least half true. Like I said, it is exhausting. It's like these so-called journalists think we, the people, are so stupid we have to be told how to feel about something, and are so naive and suggestible that we have to be shielded from anything favorable to the other side.
Exactly. Somebody tell this to the censoring people like YouTube, Google, social media, and all these other tards.
We are responsible, educated adults, capable of making up our own minds, thank you very much. Don't feed us your propaganda, that the sky is pink, and expect us to fall in lockstep because you are so correct. There are too many articles in this magazine that are supposedly about psychology that are nothing but the author's stinky political opinions, and many of those are so gutless they have no place for comments. So I think that's a perfect place to leave it off. To really protect yourself from psychic attack, you gotta use your mind a little. But that's merely the obvious. Well, that's all for now, folks. What do you think about this article? Are you prepared to fight against the psychic attacks of the mainstream and the society we live in? Be sure to let me know. Now, this is just a reminder that websites are no longer spreading around red-pilled content. So if you want to help out, post this video on social media. As always, thanks for watching. This has been Mr. Obvious, and I'll see you all next time.